early years of working in hospice care, I thought the heaviest things I'd carry would be physical, oxygen tanks, medical files, hospital bags packed in a rush. But I soon realized, the real weight isn't in the hands. It's in the heart. What most people carry with them in the final years, or even the final days, isn't just pain or illness. It's silence. A silence that follows them into their room, into their memories, into their sleep. And more often than not, that silence comes from friendships that disappeared without warning. I used to think that when people reached a certain age, 60, 70, 80, they were surrounded by old friends, lifelong bonds. But the reality is more complicated. Some friends move away, some pass, some simply drift, and others remain alive but emotionally gone. There was a man named Bill I cared for, 74, retired math teacher. Stoic, kind, fiercely independent. For the first few weeks, he didn't talk much beyond what was necessary. But one afternoon, while watching the sun hit the edge of his curtain, he said, "Funny thing, I thought I'd be surrounded by people at this age. Turns out the loneliest part isn't being alone. It's knowing the people who knew you best don't call anymore." He didn't say it with bitterness. He said it like a fact, like gravity. Stuck with me, because I began to hear variations of that same truth, over and over. From men and women, from veterans and teachers, from gentle grandmothers and strong-minded engineers. People who'd built lives filled with social activity, networks, church groups, poker nights, book clubs, all of it. And yet, somewhere around the age of 60, things began to change. At first, the changes were subtle. A friend stops returning calls as quickly. Someone stops inviting you to their annual holiday dinner. You miss one get-together, then two. And suddenly, the rhythm is broken. And most people don't talk about it. They internalize it. They wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I not interesting anymore? Was the friendship ever real? The first harsh truth I've learned, and witnessed firsthand, is this: not all friendships are built to last the full journey. Some are seasonal. They serve you beautifully for a time, for a chapter, but they aren't made to walk with you all the way into your later years. And that's not always a betrayal. Sometimes, it's just life shifting. But knowing that doesn't make the sting any softer when it happens. Especially when it's not a loud goodbye, but a quiet disappearance. I remember a woman named June, 68, lovely smile, widowed early. She told me about her best friend of 35 years. We raised our kids side by side, shared recipes, stories, vacations. Then, one day I realized she hadn't called in 6 months. I texted. She said she was busy lately. That was 2 years ago. June didn't cry when she told me, but her voice cracked slightly on the word vacations. Some memories don't fade cleanly. If you're past 60, you might have noticed something similar. The friend who used to check in weekly now only responds with emojis. The one who you thought would be with you in retirement is now caught up in grandkids, travel, or their own health. And it's okay to feel confused, even hurt. The second harsh truth is one many seniors feel but struggle to admit. Friendships after 60 become more fragile when we pretend nothing's changed. Because things have changed. Our energy changes. Our needs change. What used to feel fun might now feel draining. What we once tolerated, small talk, gossip, obligation, now feels like noise. And unless we learn to communicate those shifts gently but honestly, friendships can quietly decay. A man I met during my clinical training, Raymond, once said something that stayed with me for years. Nobody told me I'd have to relearn how to be a friend after retirement. What he meant was, being a good friend at 30 is not the same as being a good friend at 65. 30, you're managing jobs, kids, chaos. You bond through motion. At 65, you're more still, and stillness demands depth. It demands that we see each other fully and speak with more kindness than convenience. I've seen seniors hold on to friendships that no longer nourish them, out of loyalty, guilt, or habit. And I've seen others cut ties too quickly, mistaking change for betrayal. The key, as I've come to believe, is gentle honesty. Saying to a friend, I still care about you, but I don't have the energy for weekly phone calls. Can we find a rhythm that feels good for both of us? Or even, I miss what we used to have. I know life's changed. I'd love to reconnect. No pressure, just presence. These conversations aren't easy, but they're better than the slow erosion of silence. More than once, I've heard elderly patients say, I wish I'd reached out while there was still time, not because the other person was perfect, but because the friendship still mattered, even if it had changed form. A friend once told me, we used to laugh so hard our stomachs hurt. Now, I can't remember the last time she really looked at me when we spoke. She wasn't talking about a stranger. She meant her oldest friend. They still talked every now and then. On paper, they were in touch, but something essential had gone missing. The warmth, the realness. It's a quiet kind of loss, harder to name than distance. It's when someone's physically present but emotionally absent. When the conversations become shorter, safer, shallower. You talk about the weather, about errands, about what the grandkids are up to, but deep down you miss being seen. That brings me to the third truth I've come to understand, both from listening and from watching it unfold. Friendship after 60 demands emotional presence, not just proximity. I've worked with seniors who lived just 5 minutes apart from people they once considered family. Yet they hadn't had a meaningful conversation in years. Meanwhile, I've seen others hold on to connection with someone across the country. A once-a-month call that left them smiling for days. The difference wasn't distance. It was depth. I remember a woman named Clara. She was 82 in palliative care and fiercely independent. Still kept her lipstick in a drawer by the bed. Just in case, she used to say. One evening, I asked if there was anyone she'd like us to call. She said no, then paused, looked away, and whispered, they'll say they're coming, but they'll sit at the foot of the bed and talk about traffic. I'd rather remember how we used to be, not pretend we still are. That line broke my heart, but I understood what she meant. Sometimes the most painful part isn't losing a friend entirely. It's watching the connection dim and pretending it hasn't. It's sitting across from someone you once laughed with, and realizing you now both speak in polite sentences, keeping the deeper waters untouched. What causes that? Fatigue sometimes, miscommunication, but often it's fear. Fear of being too heavy, too emotional, of becoming the needy friend. Many seniors don't want to burden others, especially as their bodies change, as they begin to slow down. So instead of asking for presence, they accept politeness. But kindness without depth can feel hollow. I've had older clients say things like, she asks how I'm doing, but doesn't wait for the answer. Or, he still visits, but it feels like he's checking a box, not sharing a moment. If you've ever felt that, you're not alone. And if you're on the other side, unsure how to connect with someone who's aging, here's what I've seen truly matter. Put down the phone. See, look them in the eyes. Ask a real question. Not how are you, but what's been on your mind lately? Or even better, want to tell me a story you've never told before? You'd be amazed what opens up when we stop trying to catch up and instead just choose to be here. Even a 10-minute visit, if it's real, can fill a person's spirit more than an hour of distracted company. There was a man named Theo. He used to visit his older brother who had early-stage dementia. He told me, at first I kept trying to get him to talk like before, to remember stuff, but then I realized, maybe that's not the point. So now I just sit beside him and hold his hand. Sometimes we say nothing. Sometimes we hum an old tune. But when I leave, I know we were there together. I carry that with me, because emotional presence, even in silence, is one of the rarest gifts we can offer after 60. So if you're finding your friendships feel thinner, quieter, more distant, ask yourself gently, have I been asking for presence? Have I been offering it? And if not, could today be the day I try? If you're still here, feel free to leave your thoughts below. I read each one with care. One of the more difficult truths I've learned is this: not every long-standing friendship is a safe one. It's something people rarely talk about. There's a kind of reverence we attach to long relationships. We've known each other 40 years. She was there when my kids were born. We've been through everything. And yes, that history is meaningful. But time alone doesn't make something healthy. Some seniors stay in friendships that drain them, out of loyalty or out of fear of being alone. I've seen it more often than people might think. There was a man I cared for named Howard. He was 71 when I met him. A quiet man, former mechanic, used to build birdhouses from scrap wood. He had a friend named Carl. They'd grown up on the same block, played baseball as kids, stayed close well into retirement. Carl visited often, but every time he left, Howard seemed heavier. One day, I asked gently, "Do you enjoy when he comes by?" Howard hesitated, then sighed. I mean, he means well, but he always makes me feel like I'm behind on something. He brags about everything, his health, his kids, his money. It's not that I'm jealous. I just feel small. That was the first time I really understood how some friendships, even old ones, can quietly erode our sense of worth. Carl wasn't cruel. He probably didn't mean harm, but every visit became a comparison, not a comfort. Howard stayed friends with him for decades, not because it brought him peace, but because he thought he owed him for all the years. I call that friendship out of obligation, and it's more common than we admit, especially after 60. I've spoken to women who dread coffee with their old best friend, because the conversation always turns judgmental. To men who feel anxious when a certain buddy calls, because they know the jokes will be backhanded. But they stay, because they feel too old to start over. Because they feel like walking away now would be ungrateful. Because they fear what happens when the phone stops ringing altogether. Here's what I gently tell the people I work with. Loyalty is not the same as emotional safety, and history does not excuse harm. If a friendship consistently leaves you drained, small, unheard, you have the right to create space. Even at 60, even at 80, especially then. There was a woman, Eleanor, 76, former nurse. She shared a quiet story with me once. I had this friend, Maggie. We'd been close since our 20s. But every time I shared something joyful, my new garden, my grandson's visit, she'd find a way to dim it. Must be nice for you. Well, I don't have that luxury. I always left our calls feeling guilty for being happy. One day I just stopped calling. It hurt. But after a few weeks I realized I was breathing easier. I didn't dread Thursdays anymore. Eleanor didn't make a scene. She didn't write a long explanation. She simply made a quiet choice to protect her peace. Sometimes that's what healing looks like. It doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it means soft boundaries, less contact, shorter visits, or even full separation. This is not about coldness. It's about kindness to yourself. Because as we grow older, the energy we have is no longer endless, and the spaces we spend it in matter more than ever. I often encourage seniors to ask themselves one question after every social interaction. Do I feel lighter or heavier? It's a simple test. If a friend brings laughter, ease, or quiet comfort, even in silence, that's a weight you're meant to carry. But if you leave feeling tight, ashamed, or unseen, it may be time to reevaluate the role that person plays in your life now. And if you're unsure how to step back without causing harm, try words like, "I've been needing more quiet time lately. I'm slowing down a bit. I'm focusing more on family these days, and keeping things simpler. I still care for you, but I'm needing space for my own peace right now." These aren't excuses. They're truths, gentle ones, and spoken with care, they often land better than we fear. And for those of us supporting older loved ones, children, caregivers, therapists, it's important we recognize when a senior is staying in a friendship because they think they have no choice. Remind them they're still allowed to choose, even now, especially now. I remember sitting beside a man named Lawrence. He was 79, a retired dentist, steady hands even in old age. He once said to me, "I used to be surrounded by people, colleagues, neighbors, friends. Now they're still there, I suppose, but no one really asks how I'm doing, and I've forgotten how to tell them." That line stayed with me, not because it was sad, but because it was true for so many. After 60, something subtle happens in the way we relate to others. For most of our lives, we're taught to be productive, reliable, useful. We give advice, hold things together, make sure others are okay, especially if we're parents or the strong friend. But as we age, our needs shift, our bodies soften, our pace slows, and sometimes, quietly, our hearts begin to crave something we're no longer practiced in asking for: emotional closeness, safe presence, gentle understanding. The fourth harsh truth I've seen again and again is this: many seniors still need emotional intimacy, but don't know how to ask for it anymore. And because they don't ask, others assume they don't want it. They assume the older man who sits quietly on the porch prefers to be alone. They assume the woman who nods and smiles at dinner is perfectly content. They don't realize these are practiced responses, not honest ones. In hospice settings, I've met countless patients who opened up only when they were truly still. In the final weeks or sometimes days, they'd tell me stories their children never heard, secrets they never felt safe enough to share, feelings they were told were too much or too late. But the truth is, it's never too late to want connection. There was a woman named Teresa, 73, soft-spoken, loved puzzles. She told me once, "I miss hugging someone and not feeling like I'm being careful. I miss real touch, real listening. But at my age, you feel silly asking for it." She didn't want pity. She didn't want someone to fix anything. She just wanted presence that didn't feel polite, but real. And what's even more heartbreaking is this: I've spoken to younger family members, children, even spouses who say, "She never says what she needs. He never talks about how he's feeling. They seem fine. I don't want to push." And so both sides stay quiet, out of politeness, out of habit, out of fear, and the distance grows. I often remind families, older adults are not immune to emotional hunger. In fact, they often feel it more acutely but express it more subtly. That's why some seniors begin testing the waters. They might say things like, "It's been a quiet day. You must be too busy to stop by. I saw an old photo. Made me think of when we used to talk more." These aren't casual observations. They're invitations. Soft ones, indirect ones, but deeply human. They are saying, "I miss you. I miss feeling close. I miss being part of something real." And if we're not careful, we'll miss them altogether. In therapy, we often explore what it means to request closeness, not just through words, but through posture, energy, timing. And I often encourage my older clients to try simple language like, "Could we talk without distractions for a bit? I miss having real conversations with you. I'm still here, and I still want to feel close." It's vulnerable, yes, but it opens doors. And for those on the receiving end, a child, a friend, a neighbor, it doesn't take grand gestures to make someone feel emotionally seen. Sometimes all it takes is asking with genuine curiosity, "How are you really? What's been sitting on your heart lately? What have you been remembering these days?" Not to fix, but to witness, to say, "I see you," not just your age, not just your smile, but you. One of the kindest things you can offer a friend over 60 is space to feel without judgment, and space to be needed without performing. Because no matter how strong or quiet someone may seem, we all need to feel close to someone, even and especially in the quiet chapters of life. There's something I've noticed near the end, something I never learned in textbooks, and no certification ever taught me. It's not the absence of people that haunts most older adults. It's the absence of words they didn't say, when they still had the chance. The fifth and final truth I've seen again and again is this: many seniors don't regret losing friendships. They regret staying silent when it mattered most. Not telling someone, "You hurt me." Not saying, "I miss you." Not asking, "Can we try again?" Instead, they pulled back, quietly, hoping the other would notice, hoping it wouldn't feel like giving up. But silence, however gentle, can sound like rejection. And so both sides drift. I once sat beside a woman named Helen. She was 81, cancer patient, a former piano teacher with delicate hands. She told me about her dearest friend, Margaret. 50 years of friendship, birthdays, baptisms, grief, gardens. They had a falling out 5 years before. No yelling. Just a difference in opinion. Politics, I think. Helen said, "I kept thinking she'd call. And I suppose she thought the same about me. Now I don't even know if she's alive. Her voice didn't tremble, cracked, like something inside her had been waiting 5 years for someone to ask. I gently asked, "Would you want us to find her?" She looked down at her hands. I don't know what I'd say anymore, but I think I'd feel better just hearing her voice. We did find her. Margaret was still alive. She answered, and when Helen heard her voice, her face softened in a way I can't describe. Like a locked door inside her opened just enough to let air in. They didn't fix everything, but they said what needed to be said. "I'm sorry. I missed you. You still matter." And that was enough. Sometimes healing doesn't come through resolution, but through recognition, through trying, through showing up before the silence becomes permanent. If there's someone in your life right now, a friend, old or new, with whom the connection has dimmed, I gently offer this. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to explain the whole past. You don't need to pretend nothing happened. You just need to say something honest. Like, "I've been thinking about you. I'm not sure what happened, but I miss how things used to be. If you're open to it, I'd love to reconnect." And if they don't respond or can't, you will still know you tried. That matters. Because when we reach the later chapters of life, what we carry isn't just memories. It's unfinished sentences. And sometimes, all it takes is one quiet moment to finish them. Friendship after 60 is not about numbers. It's not about staying in touch every week. It's about choosing honesty when it matters. It's about knowing when to let go and when to reach across the silence. I've learned this from watching hundreds of lives begin to soften, to quiet, to complete themselves. From the bedside, from the back porch, from letters never sent and voicemails never deleted. It's never too late to speak gently, to ask kindly, to love someone again even if just for a moment. And it's never too late to be the friend you've been needing too. If this kind of quiet reflection feels helpful to you, you're welcome to come back anytime. I'll be here,